This video is going to be about a Tee Halving joint. This is the first joint of your practice joints, and this is what it looks like in an isometric view. I'll show you another isometric view, which is here. That indicates that the top, you take half of it out, and then you cut half out of your vertical piece, and they match together to create a perfect joint. This is an isometric view of a drawing, which gives you a projection line of how the joint would be fitted and the directional process of how it's going to be fitted. What we're going to do today is this one. So this is called an orthographic projection, and what we have is our face elevation or our front elevation. Then you flip that on its side to create the side elevation, or you can flip it on its top, and that gives you a plan view or a bird's eye view. So this is how we make the joint. We've created our border, which is fine. What I always do, find my rule, is always come in off the top of your joint, top of your border, 30 millimeters by 30 millimeters, and create a cross. That gives me then, that is the start of my joint. So what I'll do is all my lines from here on in are going to be nice and faint, and because they're called construction lines. So what happens then is we'll fill them out afterwards once the joint is all complete. So I'll do a horizontal line first, and I'll do a vertical line as well. For this, the timber that we're using is 44 millimeters in thickness, in width, and in thickness, 44 millimeters thickness, and it is 32 millimeters in width. So our joint is going to be 150 millimeters long, and then we have to come down 44 millimeters because that's the thickness of our joint. Again, we'll come down to that mark and we'll project a line across. We'll then do our vertical line, which gives us our first piece of timber. So to find the center of our next joint, which has got to come down like this, we need to find the center of our timber. So half of 150 is 75. That is the center line of our joint now. So a quick tip on how I mark out where this next piece of timber goes is I'll find halfway, which is 22. So half of 44 is 22. I'll set my rule on the 22 millimeter mark, and then all I have to indicate is where the 0 is and where the 44 is. And that's given me my thickness of my timber again. I'll then come down 150, which is the length of my joint, and then I'll use my set square to do all my vertical lines. 1, 2. I don't make a line for that center. All I do, that's just an indicator of where I find the center. There's your joint. So once you've done that, you've got your vertical piece and your horizontal piece. That's our front elevation. We then need to flip it on its side to create a side view. I always come across 40 millimeters just so I've got an indicator from the side view to the front view. We will do our vertical line. That's the start of our piece. And then we need to come 32, which is the width of our timber. Now the benefit of doing an orthographic projection is once you've started doing your lines, they just project across all on the same plane. So for example, the bottom of this joint, I wouldn't have to mark 150 again because it's already there. I just project it across. So because it's a half lap, you take half out of one piece, half out of the other. So we need to find the halfway mark in this joint here. So half of 32 is 16. And then what we need to do with that is, instead of doing a solid line, what we need to do is indicate that there's a cut there, but because it's not on the surface of this piece of timber, it's inside, it has to be a dashed line. And this is how we do it. Just like that. Okay, so once we've got our front elevation, we have our side elevation, everything looks nice and neat, everything looks tidy. All my pencil lines are very sharp. So there's two ways again how you can project this view down. You can kind of do it the same as that and come across 40 millimeters, so you'd come down 40 millimeters. The ideal way to do it though is like this. So we'll project the end of our joint line down. So we take our square to the end, and I'll just create a mark there. What I'll also do then is come to the end of my joint here, and I'll create a cross section. Once I've created that cross section, I'll use my 45-degree square, and where that interjects with that cross, I'll create a line down there at 45 degrees. And the reason I'm doing that is because half of 45 is half of 90. We need to project this round at 90 degrees. So by doing that, all we have to do then is our vertical lines on this joint is transcend them down here, and as soon as they interject with this 45-degree line, bear with me, let me just do that one. As soon as they interject with that, that's our horizontal lines without doing any measurements. So what we do is, where those two cross, I'll just cast a line across. Where that one crosses, I'll just cast a line across. And where that one crosses, I'll cast the bottom line across. So once I've got these three lines, I need to put my vertical ones in. So they come from this face elevation joint. So I'll match up all my verticals and bring them down. So they've all projected down that way. So I've just created my plan elevation without doing any measurements. Okay, so once I've done that, I'm going to go over it all in pen just to show you the definition. And so we'll start with our horizontal lines first. So I've done a dashed line there, and that's to indicate that this line is a cut line, but this line is going to be projected in front of it. So you've got that one, and then that one goes on top. So these are my true lines. Then I'll do all my verticals. and I'll do my vertical dash lines. I'll do my verticals down here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And what I've done in this section, I haven't drawn those ones in because this is one solid piece of timber. Okay, so once I've done that, what I'm going to do, you don't have to do this when you do your drawings. I'm just doing this for display purposes so you can differentiate between what is what. So I'm going to put in this 45-degree projection line now, just to show you an indicator of what you need to do. We're coming off our vertical joint line. 1, 2. I'll put it in a dashed just because it's nice and neat. I always find that if I put it in a solid line, you would think it's part of the joint, when it's not. It's just part of how you project your drawings. We'll do the last one. So that's that. That's how you get that, by projecting 45s and turning it around. Next, what we're going to do is our measurement lines. So we need to indicate that how big our joint is. So for example, this is 150, the top is 150. We need to find out the width of our joint and the thickness of our joint. So I'll put it all in the vertical ones first. And this is how I like to do this, is I'll set my rule on my joint, on my job, and I will mark it 5 millimeters off, and then I'll do a 10 millimeter spacing. So everything looks nice and neat and tidy when I come to do my work. What you'll find then is if you do your jobs or your drawings nice and neat, it transcends through to your actual joints, that when you make them. Transcends through to when you actually make them. So if your drawings are nice, your drawings are neat, you've taken a lot of pride in your drawings, then it'll follow through with your job. If you don't take pride in your work, then it'll have an impact on your finished product. For example, if you messed up on your drawing and you only did it at a low standard, the chances are your woodwork is going to be to a low standard. And everything needs to be, the measurements all need to be accurate. So for example, if this wasn't 44 millimeters, let's say for argument's sake you made it 3 millimeters too big. 1, the joint is not going to be structurally sound. 2, it's not going to be aesthetically pleasing. And 3, if it was for a customer, they wouldn't pay for the work. And that is what we're teaching you to do. So by taking a little bit of pride in your work, will go a long way at the end. It's not difficult. It only takes a few minutes extra just to get things nice and neat. So there we have it. Now we'll put our measurements in. So this joint was 150 millimeters. This joint is 150 millimeters. 32. And then we got 44 and 44. Over here, what I've done is I've indicated that is half the measurements. You can either put it in as 16 and 16, or what I like to do is just put half and half. And there you have it. The Tee Halving joint.